So what kind of shock oil and diff oil should you put inside of your Losi Nascar? I'm Chad, this is the Dorking 40 RC channel. We're going to talk about all that stuff today and some testing that myself and others have been doing and what some of the parts that you can change and test with if you want to that I'm doing right now, even though I intend to run this. We have a box stock class going for oval and for on-road. But it seems like the different oils are going to really make a huge difference here. So first of all, we'll talk about the shocks because they're pretty easy. Now, these are the standard shocks that come inside of the actual Losi Nascar. I did strip a bottom cap back there. You can see the red one. I took one off of my granite grom. Like I said, this thing is like 70% real Arma Grom parts, so you can kind of get some backup parts if you have one of that stuff and try some things out. So one of the things that I am trying out right now is the actual diffs in this thing. So I think if you know about Groms, then you should know about the diffs. The original Typhon and the Granite came with the V1 diffs, which were basically all plastic out drives, plastic gears. They stripped. It was crazy. You called Horizon, and what they did is they sent you these V2 diffs. And what these V2 diffs are is, as you can see in the middle, you've got metal gears, tiny little metal planetary gears instead of plastic. But what they did is everything else is pretty much the same. You still have a plastic sun gear in the bottom and on the top, and you are basically, you're kind of running the same thing just with metal gears. And now I will tell you that running oval and running on-road are two different animals. If you're running, I guess you could say speed runs and all that kind of stuff, from my testing, you would definitely want to get rid of these, and I think most people would know, and you would want to move to their full metal diffs. Though this is a one-piece diff case where the V2s are split, metal out drives, and you got metal planetary and metal sun gears on the inside. And right now, that is what I have in my car, and I ran them the other night, switching things back and forth, just kind of trying things out. I had all this stuff for my Grom, and I just wanted to see what works and what makes a difference. So I can tell you right now, speed running and more than likely for oval, you're going to want to probably run these one-piece metal diffs. And the reason why is you just get more of a smoothing running car. But for on-road, I definitely think that we are going to want to run what comes in the box. And this is just more, I guess, proof that we're not going to have to spend any more money on these cars. And the reason why is you can't put a lot of oil in these things, which is fine. The oil thickness is really going to help you. They've been playing a lot with that. We'll show you some video here about some differences and stuff. But the thing is since these aren't perfectly made and you've got plastic and metal and all this stuff, is that you can't get them completely smooth. They still have a notchiness to them, where the all metal diffs are super smooth and allow the car to just coast and everything like that, which is great when you're trying to like go fast and all that kind of stuff. But for on-road, the benefit of having these V2 diffs is we kind of need this notchiness to give us a little bit of stopping power without using brake, because the brake on this controller goes from nothing to 100% with like a millimeter of trigger pull. So having some notchiness and built-in drag brake inside of the V2 diffs, which have the metal gears, but the rest of it is plastic, is definitely going to be the way to go. So you're not going to have to spend any more money. And I've got the video evidence and all of that here to basically show that now. I've had this car torn apart, ran it both ways, and let's just go ahead and go and take a look at some of Ron and I's video so you can see what a real driver with one of these can do versus somebody like me who thought he would be a smarty and let's see if I can make the car as fast as possible. All right, so we got the cars up here. This is mine, of course, rolling over everything. And the thing that you're going to see is that my car overshoots all of the corners, and it takes off a little too fast, and it doesn't slow down fast enough. So I really have to like milk the throttle, milk the trigger, and everything else. Makes it very difficult to drive. The other thing is I went down to like 30 weight oil and on the shocks, and it just wasn't enough. These things need like 80 weight, possibly even more. I think Ron's got 80 weight in his, and you can just see how much better his car drives and handles compared to mine. As you can see, I just took him out, but his gets around the corner where mine is overshooting and everything else. And what that allows, him to do is to basically just take the corners so much better and so much smoother, because he's able to manipulate the throttle a little bit better, and that basically gives you way better steering. The one thing that we've noticed, of course, is these things are a four-wheel drive car. They create a lot of grip, and sometimes you get steering by being off power, and sometimes you get steering by being on power. So if you take one of those away, then you're at a disadvantage. And if all you're left with is a trigger brake, then you're not in a very good shape like I am with this right now, because I need to actually brake around the corners, which means with the little motor and everything in the spec class, I am just losing total speed and everything else. So I let Ron drive my car because he's a way more experienced and better driver than me. And he said it drove like shit. So the first thing he advised me to do was to go ahead and stiffen up the shocks, which I did. And that got rid of a lot of the wandering that the car was doing. We'll see what it does this weekend. I did notice that even in oval last night, the car was wandering quite a bit. And I ran the V2 diffs last night with 20 weight oil in them. Now, we don't know what kind of oil or grease comes in them. All we know is that the full metal gears come with 3,000 CST weight inside of them. I believe Ron said he was playing with somewhere around 5,000 in the front and about 7,000 or 8,000 in the rear. And that's kind of where he had his like best success and hot lap and all that stuff at. So that's probably what we are going to end up having to do. Now, the V2 metal diffs are kind of a pain in the butt to work with because, again, if you take a look at it, plastic out drives, you've got a little screw in there, you pop this off, and then you undo all of your diff screws here, and then everything just kind of separates and falls apart, as you can see here. So we've got all of the little gears on the inside here, and then we've got the plastic sun gears underneath them. So if I get my tweezers here, we can take them apart and show you what you're looking at. I know some people are not this involved with these. They'll never get this involved with these, and it's perfectly fine. I guess that's kind of going more towards the case that I'm trying to make, is that really aren't going to have to do much to these things at all. You can play with the fluids and all that kind of stuff a little bit, but depending upon your application is really where you're going to have to land. I guess in a perfect world, what I would have is a car with these V2 diffs and have very light oil in it. So basically it would coast and be as free as possible. And that would be, you could say, my oval car, or for a lot of people, the speed run car, if you didn't want to spend the extra money and buy the all metal diffs, or then I would also have an on-road car, which would have the different diff oils and stuff in the front and the back and allow, all that nice change and all that stuff to happen. So finally got that off there. And my diff fluids look like they're kind of gumming up and reacting with each other in a very weird way as well. So I really need to clean these V2 diffs out and start all over. So I want to get these things prepped and ready to go for the weekend here. But there's the sun gear right there. There's the other sun gear. And then these are the planetary gears. And then everything just kind of sets inside of here. And that is your case that goes there. And then you put this topper back on, and you put your out drive back in there with the little screw, and that screws into the plastic on the sun gear to keep everything all tight and spinning freely together. So that's kind of the info. Perfect world, if you're going to race all this stuff, a carpet, you know, you probably would want maybe one car for oval and one car for on-road, or you can just meet in the middle like I'm going to do, and I'm going to have a car that can basically do both. So I'm going to find the best compromise of speed and everything else, which is probably going to be kind of somewhere where he was, which is around that 5,000 and 7,000 to 8,000 in the rear. As long as you don't let off the trigger in oval, which we really don't, we can pin these things pretty much wide open on our track, then the whole ability to coast really isn't going to make that big of a difference. But in on-road, it has turned out that it is a huge killer. So you definitely don't need to be fooling around with anything or thinking that we need to spend money on upgraded diffs yet. Again, I just had them because I have the Grom and wanted to play with them. Now, these V2 diffs so far hold up decently in these cars that we've seen and in the other vehicles that can be bashed and thrashed and everything else. So the hope is that is what we get here. We're not doing no bashing and crashing and all that kind of stuff. So these should more than meet our needs. We shouldn't ever have to worry about replacing these or anything else, which is definitely a good thing. Makes it more attractive because, again, it's only going to be that initial $190 that you're going to have to spend, and you're going to be good. A few more dollars on some appropriate oils for your application, and again, you're going to be good. So I am going to get everything all done here and get these V2 diffs prepped and ready to go. I'm going to go up to the track on Saturday during practice time. I'm going to run this stuff a little bit with like the heavier diff fluid in it just to see what it does. I just got done doing all that, taking these in and out. That's why we're making the video. Got my on-road tires are out. So I picked up another set of the same compound. So that way I have an oval set and an on-road set, because the ovals will, like I said before, kind of camber in and make the car a little bit faster. I did find out for sure that my newest battery was the fastest battery that I ran last night. So that's kind of unfortunate because I really didn't run these batteries a whole lot, and they just kind of sat around in their smart storage state. So they should have been taking care of themselves. I didn't look at the actual IRs, but there was definitely a time and lap difference in my car as far as how fast it was. So this new battery had 7 cycles on it, and the other ones had like 11 and 12, which doesn't sound like a lot, but these batteries are like 6 months old and have been sitting around in a non-charged state, a storage state, whatever that is for Spectrum. And that's just kind of what we're at. So we're learning a lot. These little cars are fun. There's a whole lot more to learn about these things, but I definitely think for right now, everybody is solid to just go ahead and just keep these V2 diffs and just tune with oil. Don't think, even if your track allows it, that you need to get these. If your track is going to run a modified class, because all the parts are starting to get released, the first thing that you should buy for this car, in my opinion, is going to be the shocks, because these shocks have no bladder. There's no bleed screw. There's nothing else. So trying to build the shocks properly on this is very difficult, and I'm still not that good at it. And I think somebody that can get their shocks set up really good running the thicker weight is the one that is going to have a really good advantage, because getting the car planted and all that kind of stuff is really good. The other thing, the tuning collars that are built into even the plastic shocks here can make a very big difference. I noticed last night on the oval that my front end was dragging a little bit. I was running these at 1 millimeter down from the top. I raised it up to about 2.5. That all went away. There was no more dragging. The car became more predictable and drove faster. So a lot of stuff in this video here. Hopefully it helps some of you guys out, and we'll get some more testing and video and lap times this week. So we will talk to you guys later. Peace.